Okay, so I actually want this pretty straight this time. It's funny I say that and then it's just like more crooked than the other times. All right, my name is Evan Strong. Today is the 16th of November, 2024. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We're called In the Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. So we discuss the skeletal system. We allow our bodies to get back to natural. After coming into this world, getting altered through especially clothing being the only thing placed on us physically at all times, it has the highest potential to alter our body's natural workings. And it needs to stay balanced. It needs to ideally stay natural. But also just flat things in the world, when our hands are rounded, our feet have this gripped arch that like texture, and we live on flat surfaces so often, and in this man-made world where the things that we hold are flat, we get our bodies back to their natural position. We do it by removing things. We do it by just allowing the body to work. That's the biggest key word that we have here actually at In the Image Clothing Company, is allow. So we talk about the skeletal system because the fat content comes and goes, the muscle mass comes and goes, so workouts don't really need to happen. We shouldn't need to stretch a body that's just been created with the ability to have certain amounts of range of motion. We just, like I said, keyword, need to allow the body to work. So that's what we do. Now, I've had a couple of prerequisites since before I founded In the Image Clothing Company to let that happen. And those are to lace the shoes that you wear with the shoelacing technique that we use. Look up In the Image Clothing Company anywhere online that you find us nowadays. We do have our official domain, InTheImageClothingCompany.com. As of the date that today is, that's still under construction. But find us anywhere online. The shoelacing technique, including just tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside, is just going to allow your foot to be unaltered. That's the only shoelacing technique out there that's actually shaped the way the human foot is, and I've gone over that many times within videos for In the Image Clothing Company. Now, pairing that shoelacing technique with removing the tags from all the clothing you wear, yes, even including those shoes, that really affects the arches if there's slippery synthetic tags within there. Anywhere they're placed within clothing, they're really causing unnatural gaps. I don't know why I like stutter when I say that, because I've said that the past video or two. I noticed I stuttered on that. It's like I couldn't quite get through it. I don't know why. But tags do a lot to the body. Maybe it's because I'm just not covering it very much like I used to. But tags actually really do a lot. The body only works in the position it's designed to. And these tags, they're slippery, they're synthetic, they're causing, like I'm saying, just the clothing to sit in a different position only where the tag is placed, and that's really altering the natural workings of the body. I think that's what it is I need to spend a little bit more time within the intro discussing what tags do, more than just saying, hey, take them out. Because, yeah, that's huge. That's why it's one of our 2 prerequisites. So, anyway, let's get into this, because what I'm going to talk about within this video is the hands, the feet, and the jaw, and how those 3 things are entirely connected. Now, we talk about, because it's true, right? I say, to the best of our sinful abilities, we discuss universal truths here at In the Image Clothing Company. We're not pushing opinions. We don't have things for you to like do. We're just discussing what's happening and showing how to stop the restriction. But within this, the hands, the feet, and the jaw, the whole body's connected. I always discuss that the body has to work as a whole. That's the only way it's going to actually do its natural thing, is if it's all allowed to work with itself. But these 3 things are, I'd say, more connected than almost anything. In the way that they affect each other, that I'm going to get into. There's other things within the body, I guess you could say, like the shoulders, the hips, and the jaw as well. The jaw really plays into everything. I've mentioned so often that the jaw's natural function, besides chewing food and forming words, is stabilizing the entire body. We breathe, and whether it's through our nose or our mouth, it goes through the center of our jaw, and we have to stabilize our head through every breath. And yeah, the jaw just really stabilizes the whole body. Our head's pretty heavy at the top of us, and we have to stay centered on a globe with gravity pulling us straight down. So yeah, the reason our shoelacing technique is what it is because our feet, with any other possible combination of shoelacing or tying, I know it's bold but it's true, will get altered. And if your feet, with their natural gripped arches, good nails on the toes, just as we have good nails on the fingers to allow support naturally for the pads of our either end, right, toes or fingers, that gripped arch is how you allow your whole body to be in its natural position. And I've gone over the natural body's position a lot, but what'll happen is, if your laces are altering your foot's natural, like, opening, is how I'm going to word it for right now. If your feet are just like, you know, not working because of something like incorrect lacing, and they're not allowed to, I'm going to word it, like I said, as like open, like that, right? As you've seen me stand, as you always see me, at least in videos from here back, standing, the arches need to be able to really open up, because that's how you get a neutral ankle up into the leg, into the, you know, like I always discuss, the neutral position of the pelvis, just a neutral body, allowing the core to stay active, clothing sitting where it should, pants above the hips, higher in the front than the rear, just a little bit. The seams on top of the shoulders behind that little bone that is your collarbone, and that just keeps them in their position. And then right at the edges, right, where I discuss clothing has to sit on every human because of the skeletal system, that neutral position isn't going to happen if your feet can't open, okay? Because that's how you're going to get your glute medius into its natural contracted position. That's how your pelvis will just tuck, like open arches within the feet. And within the hands, same thing, okay? If your feet are collapsed, your hands are going to be so like deactivated. But if your feet can open, your hands can open. And if your hands can open, your jaw can relax into its neutral position. But if your feet are altered and your hands are altered, your jaw is kind of like in just such a terribly unnatural position. And what it's doing is like pressing forward. And so I've talked about how the ears, all they are is just a hole between the rear of the jawbone and then the part of the skull right here, the base of your skull. It's just a hole. And ears don't continue to grow as we age. That's not what they do. They might get different shaped, but what's happening is your jaw is coming forward because of these other things, and the cartilage is just filling the gap within your ear. Because cartilage isn't quite alive in the same way the rest of the body is. Cartilage doesn't have like nerve endings in it, and yeah, cartilage can be broken up to allow room. I did a video titled How Clothing Affects the Ears, even though there's nothing clothing wise that really ever touches our ears. I mean, my beanie kind of is, but that's what I discussed within that video. So the jaw stabilizing the body is going to be so altered from the feet if your shoes are altering it. Even the tag within the tongue, if that arch isn't allowed to come up because it hits a synthetic tag and then like collapses down and out into external rotation all the way up, right? I talk about that a lot of the time. Well, your hands are basically your feet. Your hands have 27 bones and your feet have 26, unless it's the other way around. It's one of those two. And they really work so similar. Like when I'm discussing the feet and the natural gripped arch, I do this, and you can probably see as I'm doing it with my hands, I'm like doing it with my feet because they're shaped so similarly and they correspond with each other in their workings. And so if you're trying to stretch out your hands all the time and you're trying to figure out how to hold things comfortably and it feels like you're cramping up, if you're within shoes that are just cramping up your feet, quote unquote, it's just, meaning just putting them in an unnatural position, your hands are feeling it. And you're not going to be able to open your hands because your feet are collapsed because of an external thing on them. Now, I did a video for In the Image Clothing Company titled Internal Rotation is Closed Yet Open. And I really went into it discussing how closed at the extremities, meaning the feet and the hands, means an open position of like the joints, the capsule of the shoulder as a whole, and the hips, right? Because closed, but I went into it meaning closed as in line, right? Arches gripped in the feet to where the toes are like in a good position, and the hands in a neutral position where you can go both ways. It's cold, and so I'm pretty, there's not a ton of mobility right now in my wrists. Also a lot of adjustments within my shoulders yesterday that I'm doing. Just getting back to, even more centered, even more natural. So the thing is, your hands, people's hands are getting so tight and so stiff, and people will get what's called trigger finger, where they can't quite like extend one or two or multiple of their fingers. People have such excessive muscle within here and here. I have a video titled The Pinky Finger Affects the Entire Body, and I think it's titled How the Pinky Finger Affects the Entire Body. Something very similar to that. And a lot of that's from holding things that are flat when your pinky's the smallest finger, and so it just, it has to have a rounding, just the hand naturally does. But if your pinky toes are within shoes that are compressing them because the sole of the shoe is too small and the foot's being like pinched, right? As if this was my foot gripped arch, and the sole comes up and kind of like pinches that pinky toe in. Well, what'll happen is that'll be felt in your hand because the feet and the hands are so connected that when you're using your hands holding things, even things that are accommodating the workings of your hands, your pinky is going to be kind of like struggling to open, because I don't know as of current like all the anatomy of how they're really correlated, like the feet and the hands as far as like nerves and stuff go, but just how similarly they're designed can just help us see that just by seeing that. Like I said, the amount of bones that's in there and the shape of them is really so similar. So I've discussed, because I have a video titled How Cell Phones Affect Body Mechanics, and I've shown it's really important to not be holding things that are flat, because it just takes that open palm and changes how it works. And the shoulder, as you can see, my shoulder's moving, right? It's just because the shoulder in its natural position means you have a really nice open rounded hand, open but inline, right? Closed in a sense, really, because what happens when you get all that bound up muscle is your hands stay like open, even if it feels like you can't open as far as extend your fingers, your hands are like separated, that kind of open, right? So if you're having things with your hands, no matter how much stretching you do to your fingers, which I'd say we shouldn't have to stretch, but I talk all the time about like one-time releases, and if you're trying to release the muscles that are so tight and bound up within your hands, that's good to do, because if they're tight and bound up, well, they shouldn't be. But it should be just like a one-time release, and then ideally you shouldn't have to do it again, because it's from a patterning, and then once we realize what's happening, that's what we're doing, is getting our bodies out of these chronic patternings. But what you need to do to be able to allow that to happen is stop restricting your feet, because you get your hands all nice and worked out, as in the muscles worked out of their stuck position, then your hands are nice and working. But then if you go back into shoes that's collapsing your feet, you're going to feel kind of like this. If you can see what I'm like demonstrating, it's like you can't open, but then you open your feet and your hands, my hands are cold, so they're, like I said, a little bit stiffer than they naturally be, but then you can open your hands because your whole body can then just be in its natural position. Yeah, it's strange. And I've talked about this before, because I did a video one time titled "The Problem with Specialists," and I went over how the problem area within the body is not normally what's actually causing that to happen. If you have pain in your hands, it's probably either your shoulders, your jaw, your feet, your pelvis, and probably your feet really is the big one, or the jaw. Well, that's the thing, is it could be anything, any one of those things, because the only reason your hands aren't working nice and smoothly, unless something actually happened to them physically, is just because they're compensating for the other parts of the body. You know, your feet's collapsed position, your hands are trying to like hold your shoulders into their position because your feet aren't allowing it to happen. There's a lot going on that I could really get into, but you know, if your feet don't allow your pelvis to be in its position, then your pelvis's altered position is going to take your shoulders into an unnatural one, and now your hands are trying to hold your shoulders up. And it's really, in that case, coming from your shoelaces collapsing your arches, or the tag, and you know, both those things in combination. So it is kind of weird to see the body as it is. And this is what I love to see, and what I've been kind of like really seeing more of as my body gets even more natural. There wouldn't be these things, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, I've known that as I've, you know, been doing this before I even founded the company, In the Image Clothing Company, but at the same time, like, it's just getting more apparent that these things wouldn't even happen, and they're not even an actual problem. That's the weird part about it. These problems people are having with their bodies, and they're just coming up with names for things. Like I mentioned, some things with the hands, you know, they're not even a real thing. What they are is just a reaction the body's having to something that's new, hasn't been there in the past. I mean, many years back, you know, when we didn't have shoelaces even, and people just wore, I don't know, whatever it would have been, you know, moccasins or sandals, clear back, or you know what, I don't know, just whatever it was, there wasn't the potential to have things collapsing the arches of your feet the way that shoelaces laced incorrectly, tied unevenly, could do. Mostly the lacing. The tying affects the rotations more than the arches ability to grip. But you know, if we start to realize that these things are not actually the body, as far as they wouldn't be happening without these things that are altering its natural workings, because they're being placed on it. And if you can start to see the separation within that, then that's where we can actually get to like solutions that actually last, you know, because I talk about how people are going to the chiropractor like X amount of, who knows, you know, I mean, sometimes twice a month or whatever, and you shouldn't, because why are you going back if they adjusted you? Unless something happened in between, there should be no reason to go back, because you got adjusted is the like intent, right? And so I've talked about that before, and that's all it is unless there's something actually happening to you, then nothing should be happening within your body to not allow it to work. That's what's so strange, is Well, I mention all the time about how out of touch we are, but why would your hands get stiff? If we think about this, if we think about the body seriously as like not altered, out of modesty, right? And I talk about this, walking barefooted in the grass with no clothing, just for the sake of how the body would work without being restricted. Why would your hands get stiff? They're meant to do what they do. The reason is because, like I'm saying, something altering a part of your body, they're compensating. Something altering your shoulders, a tag in the rear, your hands are just, not allowed to be, stemming from the shoulder in their natural position. I mention all the time, the hand is essentially the shoulder, the foot is essentially the hip, and the wrist goes with the hand, the ankle goes with the foot. So, yeah, it's the only reason your jaw is getting so tense throughout the day is because of something else. Your jaw is getting tense if your arches are collapsed, because like I'm saying, with the hands trying to hold the shoulders up, your jaw is trying to hold your head into a neutral position when your spine here is out of its position, because your pelvis is here, putting this part of your spine in its unnatural position, and then the spine just has to curve excessively to just compensate to keep you vertical, because your feet can't naturally support your legs to have your hips in a neutral position. So jaw stuff is most commonly actually from your feet. So that's why the approaches people take, I don't really care about money, but like, it is a waste of money. People are going to doctors and spending money, but they're also putting substances within their body that, who knows? I mean, taking medication that a doctor told them will do X, but how would they know? And how do you know? And what is it? And you can read the ingredients, but you have no idea what those things are. I don't either. But people are thinking that's gonna fix their body. And people's bodies work so much less well nowadays than they ever did in the past. Like, ever. That's not some exaggeration, because we just have so much unnatural nowadays to a degree that we never have had. So, yeah, when we're looking at the jaw, if you're trying to diagnose jaw pain, you have to come at it from your feet. If you're looking at your hands, you have to come at it from your feet. I'm going to mention this. I don't have any kind of affiliation with these guys, but Xero Shoes, Xero, the brand, they're a barefoot shoe company, and I love what they do. I have had multiple of their shoes. I currently have 2 pairs of their shoes. They have a slogan titled, I don't know exactly how it's worded, but it's something like living life feet first. And I love that, because that's really what it is. And that's, I mean, again, our company, In The Image Clothing Company, one of our 2 prerequisites is just allowing your shoe to be in the shape of your foot by lacing it the way that the foot's shaped. And actually, the second prerequisite is also to do with the feet, right? Removing the tags includes the ones in the shoes. So our feet, regardless of if you can stand or not, I mean, even if you're entirely paralyzed, if your legs are still connected to your spine, like let's say you're paralyzed from the hips down, you're in a wheelchair, but if you're wearing shoes and they're laced incorrect, it's still affecting your jaw. Because even if you don't have feelings within, like feeling as in like the nerve endings don't work within your legs, the shoes are still putting your legs in a position that's affecting your spine, because it's still connected, even if you're not like walking. So, somebody can be entirely paralyzed down there and have jaw problems because of the shoes they're wearing. So it's just weird. Not bad. I mentioned we don't know what we don't know. I didn't know any of this stuff until very recent, within the past about year and a half. But I mean, and a lot of this, even like much less than that, past year, past 6 months, past even past month or 2 with a lot of the things. I'm just learning more as I go, right? But it's just weird that we kind of don't like realize that things aren't working. And that's why I say In the Image Clothing Company is so big and will always continue to just get bigger because we speak on truth, undisputed stuff that will never change, that applies to every human. The degree that applies to each person might vary, but it does apply to every single person that will ever live, because the skeletal system just has to continue to do the only thing that it does in the only position that it does. So what I'm saying is weird is we're trying medications, we're trying workouts, we're trying diets, we're trying lifestyle things and sleeping things, I mean, whatever it could be, to try to fix our bodies. And even if we're not seeing results, we still continue to do those things as if like we're obligated to just, well, I know it's not working, but we tend to keep trying anyway, the same things. It's really weird. I mean, myself in the past, right? So as well included, I'm not setting myself apart in those ways, but now I just know the actual true universal cause of these things. So that's why it's such a gift to have in the Image Clothing Company, to be able to have founded this company. Like, it's stuff that will never change. As long as these videos could possibly be watched, it's going to apply to human beings. So yeah, the feet, the hands, and the jaw, because the jaw is just trying to stabilize, and if any of the other two are altered, the feet will mostly like directly go to the hips, right? And the hands will mostly directly go to the shoulders. And either one of those two things is connected to your spine. And your spine has to hold up your head. And your jaw is stabilizing that. So that's why I correlate those three things together within this video, because they're huge. I mean, as far as their relation with each other. So really check your ears if you have jaw stuff, because like I'm saying, the cartilage, just from the positions, right? Altered feet, altered shoulders, jaw comes forward, cartilage grows to fill that gap where the jaw has come forward to, and then now you're trying to get back to normal and your jaw's hitting the excess cartilage in your ears. But really, it was because of the position your feet were in for so many years. So yeah, it's really, really cool to just see. The fixes are very, very, very simple within the body, because there's no reason the body wouldn't work unless something actually was a cause of why it couldn't work. So yeah, it's about, like I say, right? It's about simplifying, removing, getting rid of things we don't need. I've never, up until today's date, ever said anything we need to add to try to get our bodies to work. And I don't foresee that happening ever. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it won't, because, you know, but that's not the point. The point really is the body's supposed to do its thing. That's why it is what it is because it works. That's why we get born onto this earth within this being as our vessel, because it's supposed to work as a vessel, you know. So yeah, it'll just do its thing to whatever degree, whatever that looks like, however your body's shaped or works unaltered. It'll just continue to do that until or unless altered, and ideally it's the second one. Like, let's not alter it. So yeah, anyway, that's cool. That's really cool, because here's a good thing to mention. If you're doing things with your hands a lot and you're within shoes that, well, like, let's say you're trying to play the piano. That's a really good example. You're trying to play the piano, a lot of like fine motor skills, and your fingers need to be able to work, and your hands just need to be very natural, is really all it comes down to. And if you're playing the piano within shoes that's doing anything to alter your feet, you're going to have a hard time doing what your hands would naturally do. So it's things like that. Yeah. Okay, all right. So today is, like I said, the 16th of November, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. We will have clothing available when it comes. Always made out of 100% natural materials. No tags protruding from the insides, because that's one of our prerequisites, so that way you won't even have to do it, right? Remove them, because they'll already just not be there. And it'll just allow the body to work, staying centered, fitting correct. Where I was saying, ideally purchase it in your size. Don't ever buy it oversized to fit fashionably. That's just going to alter your body, and that's the intent of having it, is to not alter the body, right? So yeah, check out In the Image Clothing Company podcast. We have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is what we are founded on and around here, and what everything is centered around, because he created all. So the podcast you can find where you find your podcasts in audio form, and up until the last one, until today's date, we have also placed them in visual, where you find these videos for In the Image Clothing Company. So check us out. It's surprisingly not super cold out here. I'm shaking a little bit because it's pretty cold, but I was really happy to be able to come over here without like feeling like I'm just, so bundled up that it doesn't seem quite right, because we're a clothing company and I want to show the position of my body, and being in just a big thick coat, I like to get the visual across, right? I like to be able to be, to the best that I can, the visual example of what I'm discussing. So when I'm talking about things like this within the body, it's great to be able to be in more like minimal clothing rather than bulkier stuff, to be able to actually see the position of the body. So today is a gift, because it's been much colder than this the past few days. So anyway, yeah, thank you. We're getting really close to Christmas. I don't know if we're going to like do anything for In the Image Clothing Company for Christmas, but it's Christmas. Every day is Christmas, because every single day we get to live with our God himself, and that's what Christmas is we celebrate his birth. So I'm excited, very excited. Okay, thank you.